Hi, welcome to the Roberta Reindorf Show. I'm Roberta Reindorf, your host and your interviewer. This afternoon, we will be talking about the 2019 annual report of CCS Media. My guest today is the director of CCS Media, Mike Johnson.
Thank you for having me on your show, Roberta. I'm very excited. I've been watching your show for a while, and now I get to be a guest on it. So thank you for giving us the time today to talk about our organization.
Thank you very much. I'm incredibly honored that you are sitting here today with me. Let's start by talking a little bit about yourself. I'm pretty sure people don't know who you are. So let's do a brief introduction of yourself.
Sure. Well, the problem is I've got a common name. You know, Mike Johnson is a very common name, and I always tell people, don't Google me because there's so many Mike Johnsons. I might get like 50,000 hits. Michael's a common name and Johnson's a common name, especially in Minnesota. But I got my start back in Fridley in 1980. I was the programming director it was one of the first cable stations in the state of Minnesota. There were three of them. It was Fridley, St. Louis Park, and Bloomington. And I worked there for a couple of years in programming. And then when the system was built in the northwest suburbs, around 1982 timeframe, the company that owned the cable systems in Fridley, St. Louis Park, and Bloomington was building this system. And they offered me the job to be in programming here in the northwest suburbs. So it's a matter of being in the right place at the right time. And so it's really been a great run in community TV since started again late 1982 here in the northwest suburbs, and have been working for this organization ever since. There was a handful of us who worked for the cable company first, and in 1985, Northwest Community Television, which is now CCX Media, took over all the local operations of programming. It was the best decision ever made. And I've been doing local programming for a very, very long time. Prior to that, I worked for the Star Tribune newspaper in public relations, and got to do some TV things there. That's when I really got interested in television, when I was working at the Star Tribune, at a newspaper of all places.
Thank you so much. That's very impressive of you. I just want us to go direct into the conversation here. First of all, I want us to talk about what does CCS particularly mean? I know you said about it, but can you tell us a little bit about it, and maybe if there's some history behind that?
Sure, sure. So CCX Media is a new brand name for our organization. Several years back, actually not too long ago, maybe about 3 years or so, we decided to rebrand and not just be tied to the name community television, the name television, because quite frankly, you can see our content, and we are content creators, we're storytellers. We have the community create and tell stories and interviews. So our content goes way beyond your typical television operation. Media is more inclusive, I guess, of all the different things we do in terms of where you can find us, because basically you can find us almost everywhere in terms of whether it's on Facebook or YouTube, cable channels, websites, you name it. OTT, which stands for over-the-top TV, which would be like Apple TV, and Roku, and we're working on being on Amazon Prime too.
Thank you. You have about 30 commission members, and what I want to know is how do they contribute to Northwest Community Television?
Sure. There's cable commissioners, and then there's and maybe we could put up the PowerPoint so people can see the commissioners
Absolutely.
that we're talking about. So
Yes.
we'll put that up on the screen. And here first and foremost, it's important to understand that we serve the 9 cities, and that's what people see on the screen right now. Is we serve and I'm going to mention them real quick: Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park, Crystal, Golden Valley, Maple Grove, New Hope, Osseo, Plymouth, and Robbinsdale. Those are the 9 cities that make up the Cable Commission, which is a joint powers agency, or JPA for short, which is actually allowed in the state of Minnesota to have multi-jurisdiction agencies, which we are. So it's a joint powers group made up of these 9 communities that you see on the screen right now. And so it's these cities that we serve. That's our number one service area, is to serve these areas, not so much outside the area. Obviously, when people see things on the internet, they see us you can watch us anywhere in the world,
Right.
but our focus is the northwest suburbs. And so there's this little letter in our annual report, but you were asking about the Cable Commission, and so we have 18 members. There are 18 members, 2 members from each city. And it's the Cable Commission that does the franchising it gets a little complicated. I don't want to take too much time on it, but there's something called the public rights of way in front of everybody's home or business, where the government has a certain amount of space, I don't know if it's 10 feet or 15 feet wide, where utility companies can put cables and all kinds of things in the public right of way. It might be right in the front of your yard, right by the curb. And so the cable companies pay a franchise fee of 5% to the cities, and then this particular group puts it all back in community television. That is what makes this organization strong. The people and the cities listed, I mean, if it weren't for our 9 cities and the commitment to community television, we wouldn't be sitting and talking right now.
I'd like to talk a little bit about that particular picture there. When I look at the picture, what I see is diversity. You have a person of color, you have women on there, you have young people on there, and then you have you have quite some few Caucasians on there.
Yep.
I want to ask you, was there a specific reason why you did that? Looking at the demographics of Minnesota, this really represents the cities that we lived in.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter, a lot of the people who are representative here, I mean, we have typically, there's a lot of elected officials who are in the city. So for instance, Mike Elliott was the city's first black mayor in Brooklyn Center. So he's on the board or on the Cable Commission. And then, so a lot of them are like current city representatives who work as like city managers or city council members. And we want diversity on our Cable Commission and our board, because in a moment we're going to be talking about the board of directors. Mm-hmm. We're looking for more diversity and more ideas to keep community TV going for the future. So
let's talk about the board of directors, since you mentioned
sure.
that. With the board of directors,
yep.
I also see women on there. I
mm-hmm.
see men on there. So there's quite some diversity on there. But I want to ask you, what do they contribute to the positivity of Northwest Community Television?
Well, the board really, I answer to the board. So as executive director, I'm an executive director of 2 organizations. One's a government organization, which is the Cable Commission. The other is a nonprofit organization. Now, they still have the name Northwest Community Television Board of Directors, because there's some legalities we have to go through in order to change that to the CCX Media Board of Directors. But so think of Northwest Community Television Board as the CCX Media Board of Directors. And it's up to them to approve our budgets, approve our, what we're doing. We just recently went through a strategic plan, which we'll be talking about a little bit later on. They had to approve it. So it's not like, they give me all this. It's just like, Mike, just do whatever you want. I report to a board. We're publicly audited. We go through procedures. Things are voted on. Like, are we going to, way back when, there was a vote at one point to, do we build a building or do we lease a building? And it was ultimately decided to build a building. And so it was between the Cable Commission and the Board of Directors that, again, I report to, and they represent the people within the city. So, and then, we're trying to even get more diversity on the board, and also try to get and build a board for the future in order to get some specialty people on the board, people who have, like, say, marketing experience, people who have business experience, nonprofit management experience, because those are the things we need to gravitate to going forward.
Well, that leads me to my next question about your vision, your mission statement. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the recognition here.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, and then, just briefly, before we go into that, I'll just go back here. The board recognized you were asking about the commission members and board members, and they were recognized. One commissioner, Helen Lefebvre, has served 20 years on the commission. She works with the city of Plymouth. She's a communications manager. And then below is Sue Ellen Zagrabelny. Everybody around the studio here would know who she is, because she's an elected representative. Like, if you wanted to run
right.
and for the board, you could run as an elected representative, where the people who do programming here would actually vote for that position. So right. Sue Ellen served a term. And now we have a new person, Mary LaHaye, who has taken over for her. And then we also did some employee recognition. Barb Nolan, who I know you know,
Absolutely.
Barb retired recently. She worked here for 35 years. I actually was involved in the hiring of Barb Nolan way back when, and she spent many, many years here, and from the very beginning. And so it was a sad day when she left, but her husband is already retired, so he was saying, hey, when are you going to retire? So we recognized her in our report. And then Wendy Brierly, who's my assistant, she does all the payroll and administrative assistant type things. She was recognized for 30 years of service. You asked about the mission and the vision,
right.
And it's right on the screen there. There's a mission statement and a vision. So the vision is kind of like what is your vision? And our vision, for instance, is we want to be a dynamic media resource known by all in our member communities that informs and inspires public engagement. Your show inspires, the show that you do, now today we're focusing on community TV, and your show does inspire engagement because you talk about important topics that people want to know about.
Thank you.
And so you do a phenomenal job at that. And so
thanks very much.
The fact that we're out there in the communities, but the thing is, to be known by all is a true vision statement because we know we have a long ways to go. Mm-hmm. When you think about it, and maybe Richard could probably cut back to us for a little bit while we talk about this, we know that we have about 340 to 350,000 people right here in the northwest suburbs. That's a lot of people. If you add up that population base, we would we'd be the second largest city in terms of population right after Minneapolis.
Absolutely.
Because that population number is bigger than St. Paul. So it's a big area. And so when you think about people coming and going within cities, people moving out, moving in, it's a constant battle, if you may, to get people to know who we are and that and what we do, because we're very unique. We're very unique in terms of our mission and our vision. So let's put the graphic back up. Our great director, Richard Claddy, who does a great job, and another volunteer, is working on this program.
Absolutely.
So, and we'll be talking about what volunteers do here in a little bit later on. Mm-hmm. But our mission statement basically is to provide comprehensive media services, and we create and we help others create, such as yourself, to disseminate high-quality local content by serving our communities with honesty, professionalism, and integrity. So that's kind of like the daily mission, and the vision is we want everybody to know about us.
Right.
So that's the goal. It's like when and Richard could get a shot of this. I'm just holding up a little phone. I'm sure Steve Jobs or somebody at Apple said someday, our vision is to have this telecommunications device that is basically a computer in your hand that as many people in the world as possible, we want them to use that. And now not everybody's using the Apple phone, but they have a vision, and you always have to put a vision out there that it may not be fully attainable, but you want to put something out there that is a very lofty thing, like we want to do this, we want to be a household name, and like we want the Roberta Reindorf show to be seen by 100,000 people, that type of thing. So that would be an example of a vision.
So I wanted to ask you, when we look at these cities that you serve, Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, New Hope, Plymouth, all of these areas we have people coming in and going out. We can think about immigrants and all of that. Yeah. Well, with all these influx of different people, are you able to, so we're doing a report, would you say that you are able to concentrate on your niche because there's people coming in and going out?
That's an excellent question, Roberta. And it's hard because we're always trying to, we just recently, actually it was like last weekend, this show will be timeless, it could air a year from now, or actually we'll probably do a show in 2020 when we get to the 2020 report.
All
but
right.
We recently had 25 people here in the studio on the Saturday before this taping. And they were people from all different backgrounds, major. In fact, I think I saw you walk in the hallways
I was
there,
around here.
And you saw the diversity, right?
I saw the diversity.
You saw the diversity, and actually, there's somebody working in our control room right now it's his first time actually helping on a program,
right.
And he was at that class,
right?
And I think they call it Super Saturday, where everybody can take all the training in one day, and so. there's a lot of word of mouth type things, right? Like maybe all of those people will tell a person and they'll tell two people and so forth and so on. And certainly we reach out into the community, but we don't reach everybody. And so, you know, what I want to say to people here is if they're seeing this or they have a friend that might be interested in community TV, community media, and they live in the northwest suburbs or work in the northwest suburbs, they should give us a call and or go to our website at ccxmedia.org and get involved, because this is all about, I mean, we want to embrace diversity here. We want to tell stories, immigrant stories, like how they got here. And I know that's a personal interest of yours too. So we're gonna go, how do we help Roberta get that message out? So we're very happy to have a diverse group of people doing programming in Create, especially because they're the ones communicating with other people within their community, within kind of their micro community.
Absolutely, thank you. I know that you briefly mentioned specific areas that you do cover, but I like you to, and you did say that briefly, but I like you to go into it a little bit. But first of all, let's talk about the news, the CCS news.
All right, well, let's put up that information. We've got.
So under the news, what are the specific things that you cover? Do you cover anything pertaining to? So what are the major things you cover in the news?
Okay, well, we have a nice size. So you see our logo, CCX, which stands for Connected Community Experience. And that is our logo that we developed a while ago. And so we have these sub-brands. We have News, Sports, Cities, and Create. And so that's what you're referring to. So now the first sub-brand of our organization of CCX Media is News. And so you asked about, like, what do we cover? And we've got this, and that's like the perfect question, because it leads right to this slide, Roberta.
Thank you.
On the screen, you see, you know, the commitment that we make here in terms of what we want to cover. First and foremost, we want to cover people, right?
Absolutely.
We're covering people stories. Cities and local government is a big thing that we do, and this is all about transparency, right? Transparency in government. Later on, I'm going to be speaking at one of our local city councils and actually showing this report as well, and to let them know that it's important that city government remain transparent. We cover over 400 meetings a year, public meetings, gavel to gavel coverage from beginning to end. And there's a little saying that says all politics is local, and there's definitely some truth to that, because it really boils down to, like, hey, what's happening in my own community? What's happening in my own backyard? The things that you can deal with. Sometimes when you get up to these big national levels, you feel like, oh, I have no power. Certainly we have representatives like senators and Congress people, but we also cover schools a lot, education, stories about kids in schools, businesses, nonprofits and volunteers, local lawmakers, meaning the people at the state government house, so they got senators and Congress people at the Minnesota level. Diversity is a big thing that we cover. We talked about that a little bit. Employment issues. Transportation is a big thing at the local level. On the streets, the speed limits, will there be more roadways, that type of thing. Public safety is a big deal. We don't have the word crime in here. We don't, what I tell people is we don't want to try to be like going and chasing ambulances and police cars. We believe that there's more good news than bad news in our communities, and we want to take it more from a positive standpoint. Certainly there is, we'll report bad news on occasion, but we're not going to have all of our staff sitting listening to scanners and go, oh, I'm going to go chase that police car that's doing this or that. That's not important to us, because if it's that big, some of the local broadcast stations may cover it, and so be it. We want to focus our attention on what's happening in the northwest suburbs in terms of, okay, something big might happen. Then the stations never come back. They just cover the negative part of it. We're here to maybe cover stories like how do we prevent that from happening again? How do we get the community together to prevent something from happening? Age group issues. None of us are getting any younger, right? The last time I checked, I'm getting older by the day. So that's a big issue that we need to always be aware of. Development and redevelopment within cities, all the things going on with construction, housing, life cycle housing, meaning cities need to be prepared for not just single family homes, that they need to have enough rental property in their mix, they need to have townhomes. and senior citizen type homes too, and health and wellness issues as well.
Thank you very much. Let's look at your franchise segment. Why is that important to CCS Media?
Well, the franchise segments that you see here are like regular segments that we put out there. Like we have something called Business Matters, where we talk about businesses. School Spotlights. We featured, and this has been very popular segments, Roberta. We'll do a whole spotlight segment on a school, and it's great because parents want to know about the school. So if we all love our kids, and we are very interested in what's happening in our schools. So this is a way for people to see. And there's a lot of schools in our area, lots of them. I mean, over 75 schools within our area. I think even more than that, but way up there. It's not just one or two. And so we do these spotlights, and then parents can go and watch these segments. And standout students, one of my favorite student franchise, meaning kind of like a regular segment that we do,
right?
Where because we do a lot of athletic coverage here, lots of sports. Said, we need to also look at academics and the importance of academics and learning about what kids are doing in the school from an academic standpoint. And then some of the other ones listed there. And then we also have special reports.
Well, on the special report, I want to ask you something about the Black History Month. We just had a Black History Month. Did you do anything special on Black History Month?
Yes, we're always do some type of stories. In this particular case, it says during the month of February, the series really profiled some of the first council members of color in their cities, and other stories of a local woman who created her own nonprofit. A person of color who did that, and it's just a great way. And these are all the good thing about digital content is people could see these things, 5 years from now. That all these little special reports that you're seeing on the screen, they'll be out there for a long, long time for people to see. So if some of those things look of interest to people, go to ccxmedia.org, and you should just go in the search area and call it up, and you can watch the entire 6-month series on Black History Month.
Well, something is catching my attention then, exploring local government aid. Can you talk briefly on that?
Yes, and local government aid is kind of a complicated concept, but our news director, Shannon, ended up getting a Emmy Award nomination for doing a great job in explaining just what is local government aid. And basically what it is, in a nutshell, the way I understand it, because I actually served as an elected official way back in my youth, is that money is it's basically distributed from some of the bigger cities that have maybe a bigger tax base, like a Maple Grove. And some of the bigger cities, like Plymouth, may not receive government aid. If they do, it might be a little bit. But some of the smaller cities, so it's a way of sharing revenue to help the smaller cities that may not have a lot of businesses in their community to bring in a big enough tax base to support government operations. So, and it's always a hot topic because the small cities really rely on this quite a bit.
So we can just compare something like Robbinsdale compared to Plymouth.
Bingo. That's it. That's exactly it. Where think of it in some respect that because Plymouth is so big and they have so many businesses and so many houses. Now, granted, but they also have big tax. They have got a lot of services because it's all scale. But this goes back. I don't know how far back this goes, but it was a long time ago where somebody said we got to figure out a system to help do some revenue sharing to help cities out.
Thank you very much. I want us to turn on the slide and start looking at your election coverage. I mean, we are in election moment right now.
Oh, absolutely.
We just had our Super Tuesday. One of the things I'm really curious is when you do election coverage news, when you do news that pertains to election coverage, are you non-partisan during those moments? Do you give time more to certain specific party, or you just covering election, and so you are just not supporting a particular party?
I love that question, Roberta, and it's perfect. It's because what we do is we're about as nonpartisan as you're going to get, because we don't do any talk shows, or we do, in terms of from our end. I mean, if somebody from the public wants to come in and do things, we can't necessarily control that aspect of it. But in terms of our organization that produces things and does election coverage, We send out one of the big things we do every year. Now this was like an off election year, but next year, as we know, it'll be a big election year.
Right.
But we allow each candidate to come in and do what we call candidate statements, where they can come in, sit in front of the camera, and they could use a teleprompter, and they could all use the same thing. Because some people are better at, speaking off the cuff than others, but they all are given the opportunity. If they don't want to use a teleprompter, they certainly don't have to, but it's there, so they can do like a minute or two statement to tell, like if you were running for Brooklyn Park City Council, you could say, "Hi, I'm Roberta Reindorf," and then go through the litany of reasons of why people should vote for you.
Right.
And that's free, because let's face it, it's not like the national election where somebody has billions of dollars to pay for their own election and all the ads.
Right.
So this is a way for all of our people who are running for local office, and they've all been in here. For the most part, every single person who is serving on current and past have been in our studios doing those segments. And now with the advent of digital, they can put them on their website, they can share them with other people on Facebook, and they're just short little segments. And it's a way for people to see, well, hey, that great little newspaper piece, but now this comes alive, right? It's just like, well, this is Roberta talking, and this is what she's saying, and because we're kind of in this video age, right? I mean, it's great to have newspapers. I love newspapers. That's where I got my start. But there's something about video that adds that other element. So totally nonpartisan. Our coverage in itself is just basically providing results as they come. And we don't do any national, it's all the local results. Because those aren't even on TV. Those are typically not on even the local broadcast stations anymore. So we pride ourselves on election coverage, and we're gearing up in a major way for election coverage this year.
I think it's good in a sense that it makes the local people really understand the people that are representing them. So I would like to let them know that this is free and they can come here, and it's election time, it's election moment, and they can come and let their, their citizens know what they really stand for. If we can go back to the slide. So we have been talking about the report of 2019. You had a big change, one big change pertaining to a staff. So what happened there?
We just had one of our staff, we have very little turnover in our staff, but one of our staff people Meredith went to a station in Indiana. She was hired at a station in Indiana, and Pafua, who worked at a station in Wisconsin, I think Green Bay, came here to work. Most of our reporters have all worked in broadcast news, and they tend to like this environment. We're family friendly, we're not chasing ambulances, they're not working here at 11 o'clock at night, or it's more of more conducive for families and the kind of stories that we're doing. So that was one of the changes last year. And Pafua is doing a great job as our newest reporter, so we're very proud of what she's doing.
I'm proud of her too. So let's look at the News and Sports Award. What happened there?
Yeah, we won several Eric Severide Awards. They were awarded by the Midwest Broadcast Journalist Association. First place for our news. We've been getting that a lot, first place awards. We also received first place for a Hollingsworth Park story that Shannon did. First place for cable newscast. And then we also received some from our sports. And then Midwest Emmys. I mentioned earlier about exploring local government aid. Our news department with Shannon and one of our photographers did that segment. And then Shannon also received a special award about a park in Robbinsdale, and received an Emmy nomination. And just to be nominated is a big thing, because we're competing with huge budgets.
Absolutely.
Huge budgets. Even when we win these Eric Severide Awards, we're competing with stations that have budgets 10 times our size.
Well, yet you had some kind of awards going on, and that's pretty nice.
Exactly.
Thank you. So that was a win-win for you in 2019.
Exactly.
Absolutely right. So let's take a look at your CCX Sports. What are the major things you cover under sports?
Sure. So sports, and there you see the logo. You saw the news logo earlier. Sports is, we do a little bit of everything. We do both girls and boys. It's a lot of high school sports for the most part. We serve a number of school districts, a big number of high schools, and we've got a team of John Jacobson, Jay Wilcox, and Jason Malillo, who are on-air personalities who go out and cover these events with a team, a production team. Isaac Rice is our director for mobile events. If you look at some of these high school events, they're covered as good as any professional event. We typically have 4 cameras, instant replay, graphics, and announcers, and it's really, really well done. And it's a big part of what we do. We have a mobile truck that goes out on site, and we cover, and you'll see it in the next slide here. That is the picture on the left is our truck. We covered 160 events, Roberta, in the community, and that's not just sports, but including community parades, events, concerts in the park, graduation ceremonies. That's a lot of events. So that truck that you see there is responsible for a lot of our content in the area. And then we also do sports casts within our news, 307 segments, and then a show called Sports Jam. And then the other final thing under sports is this Hall of Fame. We have this gigantic Hall of Fame wall in our building on the other side where we induct 3 new members to the Hall of Fame, like people who have done a phenomenal job in athletics.
I know you did talk about CCS cities briefly, but can you talk a little bit more?
Yes.
And then we're going to go in and talk about some of the videos, the pictures pertaining to the mayors in there.
Sure.
And what they came here to do.
Perfect. So the cities is our third sub-brand. And again, this is basically, think of it as doing municipal programming, talk shows with mayors and council members, and then think of it too as all the city council coverage. Remember earlier I mentioned we do 400 meetings.
Right.
And have we done up to 14,000? Since we started, I think we've done about 14,000 public meetings. And again, gavel to gavel coverage. So this is one of the programs we do is called The Connection. And part of our branding is called Connected Community Experience. So they renamed a show to The Connection, and it's all about doing interviews with various mayors, elected officials, and they won first place award on a segment they did on the Golden Valley Fire Department called Then and Now. They also received an award of merit for the Greenway project in Plymouth, which is this really beautiful bike trail walkway that they built throughout the city that people use a lot of. And then, believe it or not, they even got an award for a story as simple as a dock where you launch a little boat in Northwood Park. Because those are the things that are important to people. And you asked about the mayors, and here are some of the mayors here. Again, all 9 mayors are listed here. You see the Brooklyn Park Mayor, Jeff Lundy at the very top in the center, and then of course Mike Elliott to the left, Brooklyn Center. And they all are the mayors from our various cities. Shep Harris, Mark Stephenson, Mayor Kathy Hempkin. We've got Osseo, the new mayor of Plymouth, Jeff Washi, and then Robbinsdale there. So.
Well, Mike, you did talk about connections on the other slide. What I'm thinking right now is there an idea that you have pertaining to connecting all these mayors when you think about developing the cities and infrastructure and city development?
Well, that's exactly the things we talk about, Roberta, is all the things related to development. A lot of these mayors, and there's like an association called the Metro Mayors Association where they get together, they share notes, and because things don't just stop at the border of the city, right?
Absolutely.
Sometimes there's things where there could be issues where there's a busy roadway that separates one city from the other city. And so cities have to work together and share ideas, and because they say sometimes it's there's no such thing as a new idea, but I believe that there are, but sometimes you can learn things from talking with other people who are doing the same type of thing. So these Mayor Minutes is a great chance, a short segment for them to tell people these are the most important things happening within our community. And certainly, if people want to watch the full length of a council meeting or anything like that, they can do that.
That's great. You have something you call Our Town Story. And what cities have you done so far, and what did you cover?
Well, we started out, I believe, we've done Robbinsdale. And we've done, let's see, Robbinsdale was our very, very first city. We've done Brooklyn Park, and we're working on Golden Valley right now. Golden Valley is almost done, and the pictures featured here are Plymouth, the city of Plymouth. We did our, we had actually one of the pictures, and the top color picture is the debut of the Plymouth History Show. And it really goes back, and we get old black and white photos taken in the old days, and we're doing interviews with people who have been in the community for a very long time. So sometimes we're interviewing people that might be 80 years old who know more about the history. And it does work out great if there's a historical society attached to that. That would be like an organization that really wants to preserve the history in the town. Robbinsdale was a good example of that. There was a history group in Plymouth. Golden Valley, the one we're working on right now, has their own historical society. Very important to have. And so we work with these people, and we think it's important because you learn a lot from history, right?
Absolutely.
And we want even the younger people. We've been experimenting, like trying to get some of these things played in the schools, like in a history class. Do you even know your own local history in your own town? And
I think this is really unique because they help new people, immigrants, young people, like you said, to be really know why they live, I mean, where they live and what the history behind where they live. And then maybe inculcate that into their classrooms, activities, and curriculums and things like that.
Exactly. I love the series, and those will be out on, people can watch those. They can just go to our website and find out. I mean, if you live in any of the cities I just mentioned, you can watch a history right online, and we'll be more than happy to send you a version on DVD if you want, because we think it's that important.
Thank you. On the next slide, Mike, you have City Hall video system HD upgrades. How important and how transparent is that? Well,
that's very important, Roberta, because it's important that we keep the equipment operating right. It's important that we keep the latest, high definition signal so people see it clearly, it doesn't look bad. And so we literally provide all this assistance to our cities as part of what we do. And right now we're working with the city of Golden Valley on a major upgrade, which we'll see in a moment. And like New Hope City Hall recently was remodeled. Not remodeled, they built a brand new, they tore down the old one, built a brand new one. And so we were along helping them with the council chambers, like what cameras to put in, what kind of microphones should be used. Again, all for transparency purposes.
And all that ties into your web streaming of city meetings as well?
Correct.
Using technology?
Yes. And I'm going to hold up my phone again, and maybe Richard. I know Richard he wants to get some great shots here, and this. It's amazing what you can do with these devices,
Absolutely,
right? You have a phone,
yes.
I have a phone. Believe it or not, I watch a lot of our content right on this device here.
Right.
Through
web streaming.
Yeah, through web stream. We have an app that you can see things. Certainly, if I want to see it full screen, I could turn it onto the cable channel and watch it in full HD, big screen. But this gives people the ability to watch anything wherever they are. And so council meetings are all web streamed. So people, the best thing about our council meeting coverage, Roberta, is that people can pick and choose what segment they want to see. Some council meetings might go 2 or 3 hours long, right? But you may only be interested in one section of that. So we've got it set up where people can go online and go, I just want to see the section about the apartment complex being built. So you can click that on and then watch it. Or I want to see Roberta Reindorf getting a Community Citizen Award. You could click that on and watch that, or share it with friends.
That ties to my next question.
That sounds good, doesn't it?
It really sounds good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. But I was also, my next question ties to what you were going to ask, what you were saying. City Hall Council Chambers.
Yes. So
project. What is all this about?
Yeah. So basically, we have a slide here that we'll go to that shows the chamber project that we're working on with New Hope. Was just recently, a brand new building was built, and now they're in the planning stages. In fact, after I'm done with this show, I'm actually going to Golden Valley City Hall to do this report before the council.
Okay.
And just tell them all the great things we're doing and how we're assisting the cities in this. And you see an example of like one of the control rooms in the picture on the right. of what a city council control room looks like. So when we do meeting coverage, again, we do it all live on the channel. People can watch it live on the channel. And then it's all, the technical term is then encoded, and then all the agenda items are separated so people can then just watch them when they want to watch them. And we keep track of all those views, and it's interesting. I always tell elected officials, you may only have 1 or 2 people sitting in your council chambers,
right,
but always remember that there's somebody watching at home. And it could be hundreds, it could be thousands, depending on how maybe controversial an issue may be. But you know, there's always more than you know, thinking, hey, nobody's interested in city government. They truly are.
So now let's talk about CCS Create.
Well,
this is the biggest side,
yes,
where we have to really tarry a little bit. So what is the history of Create, and what does Create does?
That is perfect. So Create used to be called public access, right?
Okay.
And we decided, sometimes the word public access gets a negative connotation, like they think of Wayne's World. There was a show on, years ago, there's a movie called Wayne's World, or people think of public access as 1 camera, 1 light, and 1 microphone.
Okay.
Well, I'm telling people right now, we are doing this show in a quote-unquote public access environment, and we have 3 cameras in front of us. We're not using teleprompters, but we're in full HD quality. I mean, and there's so much more. And you know, they always joke about the plants. We have more than 1 plant. We have multiple plants. But Create is an opportunity for anybody to come in from the northwest suburbs and do a program. You are working in Create and doing a phenomenal job of communicating with the public.
Thank you.
Within the studio where we're sitting right now, it's not uncommon. We do a polka show here,
right,
and on a Saturday morning we could have 60 people dancing polka right in the same studio that we're in right now, or doing a cooking show, or interviewing a politician. There are so many things that have been done between these 4 walls here in our history. It's absolutely amazing.
Absolutely
and I
amazing.
love to see people such as Richard, who's directing this program, and many, many others, and yourself, producing a program and communicating with people. It is phenomenal. And so that's why Create is important.
Right.
So we're going to show you a little slide here, some of the pictures of some of the people. We talked a little bit about diversity,
right,
and you know, various people doing different things, whether it's their training, or we're covering something out on location like a concert or a talk show. Again, it could be anything, whatever people want. But the main thing is, you know, Create provides training to people. And like I said, we had that big workshop the other day, 25 people from all walks of life doing training, and it's free. And it's a diverse group of people doing programming. We also have focused on nonprofit outreach. You see a turtle there. We did a story about turtles within this nonprofit organization that is working with animals and, you know, and all kinds of little creatures.
So the nonprofit also was under Create as well?
Say that again? Oh, nonprofit itself? Yes. So we've done some nonprofit outreach. So we had some of our staff go out and work with nonprofit organizations to help them, because as you know, you produce a show, you know it's not easy, right?
Absolutely.
People don't realize, who are on the other side of the camera, of how much work is involved in producing a program.
Behind the scene.
So we figure there's a lot of nonprofit organizations that need assistance, and so we're out there to help them with that.
Thank you so much. Let's talk about strategic planning.
Sure.
This is a big deal.
Okay.
But first of all, let's talk about some of the highlights.
Oh yeah,
just
in general, just to kind of wrap up the highlights for the year, where there was in Create alone, and I know your numbers are within there. There were 1,146 programs, 816 hours total, and then you just see some examples of that. So. And we'll get into the supplemental information too. So we'll briefly go to this slide here, just showing some of the things we're doing. Like, it's very important we stay in touch with our elected officials, both locally and at the national level, to keep community TV going.
Right.
We do some volunteer efforts out in the community, like Feed My Starving Children, we will volunteer for that. So that's just some examples there. But you asked a very, very important question, and that is the strategic plan. And that was the biggest thing we accomplished in 2019.
Okay.
And doing that, it took we spent months and months. We had an outside facilitator come in, and there's four goals, four primary goals of the plan. And first and foremost is to build long-term financial stability. So it's no secret that people who maybe discontinue cable, we call them cord cutters, they may not discontinue everything, they might still keep internet access, because internet access is the most important for everybody. So the people who just keep internet access will do then streaming video. We do not get any revenue related to streaming video, it's just traditional cable subscribers. So we are starting to see our funding, go down, and so it's a very important thing now for us to diversify our funding beyond a cable franchise fee, and to look at ways of making money, like renting the studio, or having sponsorships for programs, or advertising. Those types of things are very, very important, and provide production services.
So talking about build long-term financial stability, I want you to talk briefly about where do we get funding from?
Well, it's mainly from this 5%. It's a franchise fee that comes from all it's actually on the cable bill. It's a very small part of the bill. It's 5% franchise fee based on just the video services, not on anybody's telephone service that they may have through the cable company, not on any internet service, just traditional video service. Think of like if somebody has cable and they have CNN or a sports channel or some history channels, that's where we get some of our funding through 5% of those sales.
So what are we going to do to be able to maintain funding so this can keep going on? Because we really talked about some very important things you cover here.
That's what we're literally working on every single day behind the scenes, on coming up with all kinds of ideas that I just touched on very briefly, in terms of doing sponsorships, renting out our facilities. We're even working at, there'll be, by the time people see this, we'll have a donation. If people want to donate to this organization, we're a 501c3 tax exempt organization, so people will be able to donate easily online. We really haven't had to do any of those things in the past, but if you think in terms of like public television, where they go out and they ask people to support, like member-supported public TV, and they have donations where people can donate, or they get grants and those types of things. We're basically going to pursue a little bit of everything, and the good news is we have time to try different things out and see what will work best. But it's critical, so we don't want this to go away, because this is very unique, Roberta, in the fact that there's so much media consolidation out there, and community newspapers are dying. And when you think about it, like just in terms of our news operation, if everybody says, well, we don't need newspapers, we don't need this, all of a sudden you have all this information going back and forth with no gatekeeper. Like, then you wonder, is this news true? Is it false? Because there's just a lot of information that could be put out on the internet, on Twitter, Facebook, you name it, or YouTube, and you wonder. And that's why I'm a strong believer in media literacy. I think people need to take a class in understanding media, even understanding advertising. Like, is that true? Is it false? To be a little bit skeptical about things. Is the information you're receiving accurate?
Right.
And
what do you do with that information?
Exactly. And if people are just putting stuff out there, and if people are not media literate, they're going to think, oh, that must be true because it was on TV.
Right.
So it's important that we still have, and there's so many stories. That's the thing. We've covered thousands upon thousands of stories that would have never been covered ever had we not implemented a very good local news program that's recognized all over the country as one of the best community television programs around.
Okay, I want us to look talked a little bit about the channel guide,
Sure.
but more so, can you concentrate a little bit on the CCS Media web states?
Yes.
So we can look at the statistics and see
Yeah.
where we have been in 2019, how far
Yes.
we've got to, and where we're going.
Very excited. What I'm going to try to do is we'll whip through these things real quick, and then you and I could kind of wrap things up because I know we have about 10 minutes left.
About
That's our
9
channels. On the channel, like 12, we have an SD, which stands for standard definition, and then 799 is our HD channel. And then Create has an HD channel, 859, and these are on Comcast cable. And then another one, which is an SD, standard definition Create channel. And then our city channels, we have 16. Channel 16 is the city channels for 9 cities, so there's 9 separate kind of city channels. This is interesting. So,
So what, Mike, when we look at 2010,
yep,
comparing that to, so 2010 you had 8,663, if I
Yep.
can see it right.
you did.
And then in 2019, look at the outrageous movement.
That's great. And that's all good news because even before 2019, I mean, if you compare us to lots of, say, other community TV centers around, other organizations, they don't even come close to these numbers. But what we're finding is, so what the biggest jump between 2018 and 2019 is the fact that we now have a person dedicated, a social media coordinator, who knows, and kind of a web person who knows how to drive community content and interest of that, and I call him the Wizard of Oz because he's in there doing all kinds of things to drive interest in our content. Because, like I said at the very beginning, we are content creators, and otherwise it's out of sight, out of mind. If you don't know about it, then it's people won't know. And so he does an excellent job in getting people to go to our website. And the next stat is just overall page views, which is a little bit different than the other ones. We had 1.2 million page views. And then, but the reason we got that, you're asking about, like, what was the driver? The big thing is increased focus on search engine optimization, or SEO. That's a critical thing to make sure that every clip we have out there has as much information as possible, because all this content that ends up also, beyond the cable channels, which are very important, ends up on YouTube. YouTube is owned by Google, and if you do a Google search, you're going to find our content. For instance, if the Roberta Reindorf show is on YouTube,
Right.
if you put the right information in there, people will be able to find it.
Right.
So we've been added to various news groups. We have links to our city web pages at all of our 9 cities, Twitter links, and then we send out email blasts to local people who want to see content delivered right to their home.
I want us to just go through those statistics a little bit, and something is really coming to mind. It's the importance of social media.
Yes.
And how Facebook has really caused things to really proliferate.
That's a biggie. You hit it right on the head there, Roberta. This is our Facebook followers. That's we've seen, again, with the help of having a social media person, driving interest in our content and getting information out there. So we have, and this doesn't even include all the Facebook followers, say on the Create page. There's something called annual Facebook reach, which you see there, and then video views. Our video views on Facebook just went through the roof. 1.7 million views for hyper local content.
Right.
So we focused on gaining more followers. We find how much you can end up posting too much. So it's important that you don't overpost. And we primarily focused on the video content. And then we built these partnerships with the cities. This was these are the cities that are member cities. So we actually natively upload content to our cities' pages, because we have a little slogan now: is we don't care where they see it as long as they see it.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing. So that's very important. We're also on Twitter.
Right.
And then you can see our content on a mobile app.
Right. I wanted to talk a little bit. We only
Sure.
got 5 minutes
Right.
here, but I want you to really, I mean, it's interesting how social media is influencing how we communicate with the public.
Yes.
And so talk briefly about the mobile app. I mean,
The mobile
businesses are using mobile app everywhere, and here you are using mobile apps. So
well, let's hope we can, with the number of viewers you have on your show, we can tell people that, like, they can download the CCX Media app from the Apple, the store on Apple and or Google Play. It's free. And all of our content is there. It's basically mirrors our website, so you can watch any content. So if you live in the northwest suburbs and want, you can live anywhere in the world and watch our content. But I'm appealing to the local northwest suburbs people that if you really want to see content about your community, go to our, download our mobile app, and it could go on a phone or a tablet. And then we're also on Apple TV and Roku. We started that in 2019.
Roku is another big deal too. I mean, today you can just go anywhere, buy a Roku TV, and there it is, CCS Media right in there.
It's right in there. You could put it right up on your screen, and it's there. And now there's a lot of TVs being manufactured where you don't even need a separate little box. It's built. The software is built into the TV itself.
It's all built in.
It's amazing.
Well, Mike, 4 minutes, take 2 minutes, and just talk briefly about the broadcast of city meetings and why it's so important.
Yes. So, you know, a lot of things we put on YouTube, but the city meetings themselves, I'm going to go to that slide, is very important. But one of the things I wanted to mention is that this was also a record year for overall views across all platforms. We had 10 million views. That's an all-time record. But the broadcast of city meetings, perfect timing for this question too, because we talked about that we do these meetings, you know, gavel to gavel coverage. So this is an actual stat from 2019. You see we did 402 meetings and they're broken down by city. And then we have another stat that if we go here, we've got actual views then of each one of those meetings. So if you look there, you'll see and it's by city and by month. So let's see, Brooklyn Park had 3,975 individual views within a year's time of local content.
But take a look at Maple Grove, which has 4,704 meetings.
Yep. Yeah, actual
Amazing.
views.
Yeah.
And again, I think a lot of it, it could change from year to year. It all depends on what the subject matter is. So if if there's a city doing major development and people want to know about it, then they would tune in.
So a total of 15,457.
Yeah.
That's a
of
big
local council meetings. So that's why I always tell the council members, there are people watching you.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, Mike, we only got 3 minutes left. I want you to take a minute and tell the public something. You are the director of CCS Media. I mean, this is really a good report.
Yeah,
Looking from where you are, you were and where you have been, I think you've done a great job. And
thank you so much.
I want you to know that I am really impressed of the great things you're doing. I didn't know all of these things have been going on here. I mean, I know part of it, but I didn't know about the results like that.
Right.
And I've been here 13 years. Can you believe that? So can you take a moment and tell the public something?
Sure, and thank you for the time. Again, so I don't forget at the very end, I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity on the show, because when you approached me and said, I want you to be on the show, it's just like, I was actually very excited because you do such a great job.
Thank you so much.
You know, anywhere where we can spread our message out there, and I'm going to look in the camera or this camera, wherever Richard wants me to look. Maybe we'll do this because we'll probably end on this. We could both see the time as well.
Absolutely.
But we want people to know that we're here. We're a big part of the northwest suburbs. We've been here since 1982, and I've been here since day one. So I've watched the system go from literally nothing to where we're at today. You have one of the best, and this is not to sound grandiose in any way, but people have one of the best community television operations in the country right here in the northwest suburbs. And we owe it all to the cities who support us, our cable commission and our board of directors, all the volunteers who work on programs here, such as yourself.
Thank you.
And I am blessed, I use the word blessed, I am blessed to have a great staff to work with. We have some amazing staff. I know you've always been telling me behind the scenes that you love our staff, because nothing else matters. If we don't have the staff that can do this properly and work with the public, because we are in the people business. We tell stories, we reflect on, we cover events and those types of things. And if we're not also, out there with positive attitudes and doing training and those things properly, then we wouldn't be a viable organization. So I really appreciate Roberta, the time you've given.
Thank you.
And I look forward to, hopefully, I'm gonna put this little plug out because I know we have almost 30 seconds left. That there is another subject that I'd like to talk about in a future show if you ever have time.
You're almost welcome. Always welcome.
Okay. Well, We won't even tease that thing. We'll just there's some important things we need to talk about that's happening like at the federal level
Right.
to help support community TV down the road. And thank you so much,
Mike
for the
Johnson, you've
opportunity.
been a great man, and certainly you are blessed. You are blessed because you've done such an amazing job. I can tell you how grateful I am to have you sitting here talking about this. Thank you so much.
Hey, and the water is great. It's nice. You even had chilled water for us.
And you've been watching the Roberta Reindorf Show. I'm Roberta Reindorf, your host and your interviewer. Keep watching and come here and join us, and let's do some great job for the cities that CCS Media do cover. Again, thank you. And with that, have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.